How can you earn gold in a low or medium sized server? Well, this is how I did it. Before I start, wars, invasions, outpost rush, and questing are well known sources of gold income. So I'll be focusing mainly on the trading market. I know some of you will ask, Kytros, there's so much supply, but no demand. How will it still work? Well, take note that some of the things I mention later will differ from server to server, because things like the item prices also vary. If you come from a high populated server, then this video might not help you. But if it did, then I'm glad it did. Purpose of this video is to share with you guys the ideas behind my gold income and some of the valuable items to keep a lookout for such that you can think for yourself and examine in your own server what you should be selling there. For the first tip, decide if you want to be a crafter or a merchant. What I mean by merchant is that you'll be focusing on selling things you cannot craft easily, like basic materials or things that will be used for crafting. There's no reason that you can't be both, but the reason I say to pick one is because it costs so much mats to level crafting to a relevant level. And look at it this way, prices are bound to drop, or at least are decreasing slowly by the day. And I'm sure you have noticed this trend in your own server. Instead of spending money on mats or gathering mats to level your crafting, you can sell them when they are in demand now. And since everyone's leveling their crafting, mats are priced higher. You can just level your crafting later when mats are way cheaper. If you're not convinced, then perhaps this will persuade you. As soon as these content creators release videos on a new exploit or the next best new spot to farm for materials, the prices of such materials are bound to drop. If you're still not convinced that prices will drop, then please enlighten me in the comment section below. After all, the purpose of my video is to advise you guys on how you can make gold in your own server, and it will be nice to learn from you guys as well. The second tip is to know the player base first to know the market. It's all about being the first person to sell and knowing what players need. I got my money from selling level 45 to 55 plus gear because in my server I was one of the early few to hit higher levels. Hence, I had access to depths and dynasty expeditions and getting high level gear before majority of the people in my server. Now you might ask, why are you telling me this now when it's already weeks past launch and people are already hitting level 60s? Well, that's still good news for you, because the next thing you can do is to sell them higher gear score items. I'm talking about 500 plus gear score items to 600 gear score items. Some people rather do other things than to farm for their watermark, and some people just don't have the time to grind. I mean, look at me. I've been level 60 for weeks now, and I'm still at 400 plus gear score. That's because of two things actually. It's really difficult to find a group in a low size server for killing elites, and I'm focused on, well, being rich. So you can tell your player base levels based on the recruitment and global chats. If there are people still looking for an expedition group, then there are a bunch of low levels. Or looking for a group to increase their watermark, then there's a bunch of endgame players. For the low level players, they'll still be doing Townspot quests. That's because a lot of content creators out there say that this is the best way to level up, so it must be the best way to level up, and so every low level player is doing Townspot quests. You can take advantage of this by selling the mats needed for Townspot quests. The common items are like raw materials for your ingots, lumber, leather. Then you have stone, aged wood, fish fillet, and weak mana potions. These are items that people will want to fulfill in their Townspot quests, and hence will potentially sell quite well. People are extremely lazy. They would rather buy stuff than to harvest it themselves. I'm kind of one of them now because I have a big chunk of money, and I could just buy whatever materials I need. Look at weak mana potions for example. It goes for almost 5 coins in my server, and the mats to craft one is really simple. It requires you to harvest these things called briar plants, and it's a secondary drop from it. And it's everywhere. It's so common, and yet I'm still able to sell them and make almost 500 gold minus taxes from just selling 100 of them. And also look at fishing. It requires your full focus. You can't really watch a video, so it gets boring quick. Fish oil turns into cooking oil and is used for certain food that increases your stats or even logging luck. And fish fillet is also used for cooking actually. So fish oil and fish fillet are also Townspot quests, and it has potential to sell well. At least in my server, it's sold really well. So that's for low level players that are doing Townspot quests. What about the end game players? What are they doing? Well, they're doing PvP, wars, invasions, outpost rush. They're buying houses, trying to max out their crafting so that they can, get all the achievements. So they're probably looking for things like potions, higher gear score gear, furniture, mats to level their crafting. For potions, look at what materials are needed to craft endgame potions. And what are the endgame potions? Like infused health potions, infused regeneration potions. These are what people are looking for. And the most common ingredient for them is Azov water, which is very common in Reek water. For housing, people are getting houses for trophies, and maybe some will take the extra mile to decorate it. Furniture needs iron ore, wood, and oil. And oil is also used as a town board quest, so it has potential to sell. For endgame expeditions, it requires crafting tuning orbs, and so they will need motes to craft the ingredients of said keys. Motes are also important to craft several items. For example, proficiency boosters to increase yield from gathering, or an alternative way to level Arcana by crafting Focus and Encumbrance Potion, which are a much cheaper alternative to health and mana potions. For the third tip is to look at quests and what items they need to fulfill the quest, and then look at where the nearest settlement is for that quest. For example, there is a level 56 quest that requires Dragon Glory Flower, Earthspine Leaf, Shocking Lodestone, and Fungal Spores. Some of these are extremely rare to get unless you have high luck in harvesting. Dragon Glory Flower in fact used to sell for 1000 gold, and it has since dropped in price because people have noticed the trend. But because it's part of the main quest, it will still be in demand until you run out of leveling players in your server. Some quests also rewards you with really good gear early on, and sometimes they can be tradable. For example, when you do the fishing quest line, you get rewarded with an ironwood fishing rod. And if you're like me, you will aim for the legendary fishing rod at the end, so selling the ironwood fishing rod is a no-brainer. With no one having access to ironwood early or actively crafting it, it has a potential to sell. I managed to sell mine for 1000 gold, and in hindsight, I could have priced it a little bit higher, but money is still money. Alright, tip number 3.5, a continuation of the previous tip, but I wouldn't call this a tip because it's an unpopular opinion. You can just create a new Steam account and use the Steam family system to play a new character in the same world, and then you can speedrun the first few starting quests until you get a substantial amount of gold. Then do the fishing quest line until you get the free ironwood fishing rod again, and from here you can either sell or trade your gold with your friend for safekeeping. If you don't have friends or trustable ones, you can list an overpriced item with your main account and buy it with your sub account, and then you rinse and repeat until you're satisfied with the amount you have. I haven't tried this method because I'm not sure if it's against any terms of service. It's more of in theory, but we have to do what we gotta do for money. Interestingly, I got this idea from how the bots are farming gold. So do it at your own risk because I don't know what the consequences are. I mean, there are stories that they haven't banned people who abused the gold exploit last week. So for the fourth tip, once you have enough money, you want to start placing buy orders to flip the market. Place buy orders at half the price of the item or less, then sell them at 1 cent less of what the market rate is. Be careful though, as this can cascade until it's worth too little. You'll be surprised that the buy orders do get fulfilled. Please stop undervaluing the items by undercutting so much. Unless your goal is to make the item drop in price, then please do everyone a favor and stop. The lumber here was selling well at almost 2 coins each, and this fella had to undercut it to 1 coin each. You can also bring the stuff over to another settlement and sell them higher. Do not underestimate how lazy people can be. Azov is a limited resource and it's not easy getting them. Of course, you can just do the usual wars, invasion, and outpost rush and questing. It is only available to the higher level players though, and it is still costly to travel, especially if your faction has very few settlements, so there's not much discounts. So you can do the traveling for them and list items where they need for the quest, like how Dragon Glory Flower is at Brightwood, so list it there. Don't waste time on settlements with nobody. You can guess where people are at based on the crafting tiers because that means there are people there doing the Townsport quests and task potential customers to sell the items needed for the Townsport quests. Lastly, always experiment. This is for all servers no matter the population size, and it's especially true for small servers. It doesn't matter if things are expensive if it doesn't move at all. So test the waters by listing the items on the market and wait for it to sell. If it sells, then list it again. If it sells again, you have found your income. The reason I have to say this is because you know how these content creators create videos about how much money they can earn in an hour? Well, they aren't earning the money unless they actually sell the item. And it kinda annoys me when they look at the market rate and say, oh, I've earned this much from gathering this much, when in fact they haven't sold a damn thing and it's just their potential income. For those videos that show proof of completed transactions, then sure, it works. But take note that because of these videos, the market for that item would become too saturated that it becomes not worth competing for anymore. To give you guys an example, I was testing out if coarse leather sells. It takes me 10 cents to buy one rawhide, and it would take me about 40 cents plus taxes to craft one coarse leather. And yet, I can list coarse leather at 70 to 80 cents each. That's 1.5 times my gold if it sells. And it did. Oh, if you're doing something similar to me and buying 10 cents rawhide, don't buy all of it so you can keep the prices low. Unless you're planning to sell the rawhide, then sure, by all means, manipulate the market by buying out all the lower stock. But be careful though, as buying out the low stock is a risky move. As I said earlier, and will mention again, people are lazy. Items that require multiple steps to craft are sometimes not worth to them. For example, crafting lumber requires one to chop down trees for green wood and aged wood, craft timber, and have sandpaper. That's about 3 to 4 steps to get lumber. So do it for them and list items that are tedious to craft. Oh, and by the way, lumber is also another item used for Townsport quest, so it has another potential to sell. This is more of a caution than a tip, but please be careful of taxes when you start flipping the market, because taxes can cost you more than what you are profiting. If you're not careful, the refining fees might not be worth the flip. Alright, here's something I'm interested to know from you guys before I end the video. Should you get housing? It's 500 gold in taxes depending on the size of the house per week, and it's easily gotten from evasions, and over 7 days you will have more than enough money to pay for the taxes. Trophies are for additional luck, which are nice to have, and additional storage is always welcome, but then it becomes optional when you can just list items for storage, and when it expires, it goes over the limits with no penalty except being unable to create new buy orders. Then owning 3 houses just means more taxes. In my opinion, you don't really need a house, it's just a huge money sink that you first have to pay for and then the taxes after. So I don't think I will be getting one unless I have a lot of disposable income. What about you guys though? Will you still get a house? And for what reason do you justify doing so? Let me hear about it in the comments down below. I also stream on Twitch at 8 PM GMT plus 8, which is about 8 AM Eastern Time. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop by and ask me anything. If this video was helpful to you guys, please leave a like and share it with your friends. If you guys want more New World content from me, please subscribe so I know that I'm going in the right direction. And finally, thank you for watching.